or as Anthony said, at your passion project. Maybe you lead a church or some other kind of organization even in your spare time. And grant writing can be a great skill to have. So I am going to hopefully share a slide presentation with you. If you just bear with me a second, and we will get started. Anthony, is that showing up for you?
Yes, I can see the layout. Yep, there you go. Now you present.
Great. Okay. So, as Anthony said, we've done this annually for last few years, and last year we were online. I can't believe that almost a year later we're still doing this event online, but here we are in the world of coronavirus. What we're going to do today is start out with some really basic sort of definitions, so that we're all kind of on the same page. We're all sort of speaking the same language, and then we're gonna go through step by step, figuring out how you find grants, how you plan a project that you want to raise money for. And then each of the parts of the grant proposal, sort of piece by piece, what they are, how to approach them, what they mean. So sometimes the language that funders speak can be a little bit strange if you haven't been involved with it before. So hopefully we'll help to translate all of that for you. And we'll take you all the way through the process and see what happens if you actually are successful and get a grant. If you don't get a grant, what do you do from there? And then we'll as Anthony said, have time for questions and answers. So let's get started. So what is a grant anyway? A grant is a donation, usually from an organization like a foundation, a corporation, sometimes a government agency. And the money does not have to be paid back. It's a permanent gift from them to you. They don't usually come from individuals. That's one of the differences between a grant and sort of a normal donation or contribution. Grants, depending on the funder, they can be used for your general expenses, for very specific programs, for capital projects like buying a new building for your organization, for all sorts of different things. And grants usually require that you report back to the funder in about 6 to 12 months, depending on the exact length of the grant and the funder's preferences. So usually there is some requirement to let them know how things work out. So it's important to ask if a grant is right for your organization. So not every organization or every stage of an organization's development is ideal for pursuing grants. So one thing is, are you a nonprofit organization of some kind officially, with the IRS? That's important. Usually you need to be a nonprofit in order to pursue a grant. Is there a project that you really want to do, but you just don't have the money to do it? It's a really critical question to ask yourself. Do you actually have the time and the sort of human resources to manage a project if you were to get a grant? So if someone gave you $5,000 to do this project that you've been dreaming about, would you have time to manage that effort? And are you prepared to track all of your spending and measure your progress and send that report back to the funder that we just mentioned? Because that's really important. If you don't have that ability to track that stuff, a grant may not be the best option. So a grant proposal is actually just your written request for financial support. And it can take different forms depending on the funder that you're reaching out to. In some cases, it could be as simple as a short letter, and in other cases, it's a multi-stage application, which is what we're going to take a look at as we move forward here today. But a grant proposal typically, grant proposal typically describes a problem that you plan to address in a specific place in a specific amount of time. So, if you provide our organization with $10,000, we are going to provide childcare for 100 families in the Hunting Park neighborhood of Philadelphia over the next 12 months. So it's a specific problem that we're going to address in a specific place in a specific amount of time. One thing that's really important to realize is that every single funder has their own format that they want you to use when writing your grant proposal. As I said, it could be as simple as a short letter quickly describing your project and asking for money, or it could be a very complicated application process with multiple stages and lots of attachments and so on. And these days, grant proposals more and more are being submitted via either email or some sort of online application system. When I first started out doing grants, they were almost always submitted by mail. And often you had to submit multiple copies of documents. These days, it's become a lot more streamlined, but it still depends on each funder and their preferences. So there are kind of several basic parts of a grant proposal, and again, it's important to always say that it'll be different with each funder, but these are some of the basics. So a cover letter is just usually a one-page letter that you put at the front of your grant proposal, and it's just a chance to summarize the whole request that you're making to the funder, just to very quickly remind them who you are, what it is you're asking for, and in the very briefest terms, what it is that you want to achieve. If they give you the money. Then there's the narrative, which is the real meat of the proposal. That's your chance to really describe your organization, what you've done in the past, why you want to take on a particular project, what it is you're going to achieve if they give you the money that you're asking for. So it's really your chance to make your case to the funder. And then there's the budget, which is where you show them in detail exactly what it's going to cost to do the project that you're proposing. So you need to show them every cost, in detail, staff time, supplies that you might need to buy, if you need to buy a computer to do your project. So you're really showing them that you've thought through your idea in detail. And then there are attachments, and every funder has different attachments that they might want to see, which could include your proof that you're a nonprofit organization, a list of your board of directors if you have a board of directors, all sorts of materials, and we can talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. So there are some important tips that I'd like to just start to talk about at the beginning, and I think they're really important to remember. The first is that proposals should be clear, compelling, and concise. So what we mean is that you don't want to use complicated writing or language. You really just want to describe your project very simply so that someone who isn't involved with your organization or your project can understand it. We have to remember that the people who are reading our proposals may not know that much about us or about the project that we're proposing. So we need to be really simple and straightforward. We need to follow the instructions exactly. So every funder, as I said, has different preferences for how they want us to organize a proposal. We might not even think that they make a lot of sense sometimes, but it's really, really important to just follow those instructions to the T, and just make sure that we give them exactly what it is they're asking for. Just kind of probably repeating what we said before, but we want to put ourselves in the reader's shoes. So it's just really important to remember that, like, you have to imagine that you're not involved with your organization or your project, that you're an outside person who's reading about this for the first time, and the proposal has to make sense to you, and it has to make a strong case to you. So it's really important to kind of turn things around and imagine that you're the person reading the proposal, and figure out what you would think of it. And again, going along with that, you want to avoid jargon, which is language that's very specific to your world that might not make sense to the reader. So you want to make sure that you're translating your work into words that are clear to anyone, even someone who's maybe just a beginner in your field. You want to write proposals to reach both the head and the heart. And so what we mean by that is that you want to include facts and numbers wherever you possibly can to back up your case, and to show the funder that you really know what you're talking about. But you also want to reach people's hearts by telling powerful stories that make the human case for why a particular project is important. It's incredibly important to avoid making any promises that you can't keep. It's much better to promise something smaller in your proposal, and then to over deliver, to achieve even more than you had told the funder to expect. That will impress them. Whereas if you make huge promises at the beginning and then you can't live up to those promises, they'll be disappointed or frustrated with your project. You want to be sure that your narrative and your budget match each other. So whatever you describe in your words, you want to make sure that you have enough money to realistically pay for that kind of project, or else the funder will be confused, or will have questions about how it is that you're actually going to do the things that you say you're going to do. And the last tip is to always have somebody else or multiple people read your proposal before you send it in. And the best thing to do is to have someone read your proposal who really doesn't know that much about your project or your organization, so that they can give you feedback about whether it makes sense to them. If it doesn't make sense, you really want to go back and revise it and make it simpler, so that it'll be a nice smooth read for whoever's receiving your proposal. So let's say that you are interested in pursuing grants. The first thing you have to do is to actually find a grant. Now, I know some of you may be already be planning to apply to Esperanza's Hispanic Small Ministry Grants program, and that's great. But if you're looking for other grants, this is kind of the way to start. So these days, the best information is really available online, like a lot of things. And so I'm gonna share with you some resources for online grant listings in just a moment. But when you're actually searching, you want to look for funders that make grants in your field. So if you're running a church, you want to look for funders that support churches. If you're running a childcare organization, you want to look for funders that support the childcare field. And then obviously you want to look for funders that make donations in your geographic area. So if that's Philadelphia, maybe even particular neighborhoods in Philadelphia, you want to try to find funders that that match up with you. You can look at past donations that a funder has made and see if they go to organizations that are similar to your organization. That's a great way to figure out if a funder is a match. If they've been giving to a nonprofit that's just like yours, then you might be a great fit. Another idea can be to look at other nonprofits in your field and see who supports them. So if you have like peer organizations that do similar work, and you're able to see who gives them money, those same funders might be interested in supporting you. So for places to take a look online for grants, the very best is the foundation directory online. It's sort of like the Google of the grant world. Unfortunately, it requires a paid membership or subscription in order to use their services. But there is a way to use their services for free, which is to go to the main branch of the Free Library of Philadelphia on the Ben Franklin Parkway in Center City. And they have a special sort of a fundraising or like a nonprofit center there up on the second floor of the library. And at that center, you can use their computers and use the foundation directory online for free. And what's great about the foundation directory is it allows you to put in simple searches. So things like churches in Philadelphia, and it'll automatically find funders that support churches in Philadelphia and allow you to look at all sorts of detailed information about them. A second place that you can check out is a site called GrantStation. It's not as good as the foundation directory. It does have a fee associated with it, but it's much less expensive. And they also send out weekly emails with new funding opportunities that are often worth taking a look at. Another one is GrantWatch. They are, again, less comprehensive, but also much, much cheaper. And that's always nice, especially when you're first starting out. And then if you're ever interested in the idea of grants from the government, grants.gov is the website that the U.S. government maintains of all the grants that exist from the federal government. And that's completely free. So that's a great resource if you get into that world. So assuming that you're interested in moving forward with a project, you need to identify. Excuse me. So I have some mild allergies this year for the first time, and they're just bothering me a little bit this morning. So assuming that you have found a funder or funders that you think are of interest, you need to start to plan your project. So the first step is really to identify a problem or an issue that's important to your community. So maybe there is maybe folks in your neighborhood are going hungry, perhaps as a result of losing jobs during the coronavirus pandemic. Maybe a lot of families in your neighborhood need childcare. Whatever the issue is, you need to find an issue that has a real impact on people in your area. Then you have to think about how your organization could realistically address the problem, and how you could do it in a way that other groups aren't already doing it. So if childcare is a little bit of an issue in your neighborhood, but there's already 10 different organizations offering childcare, what is it you're going to do that will be new or different? What are you going to sort of bring to the table to improve the situation? then you need to figure out clear goals and outcomes that you're going to pursue. So if you were going to address childcare in your neighborhood, how many children will you be able to provide childcare for? How often will you be able to provide childcare? You know, what is it? What is the difference that you're going to make if you receive this money? And then you need to plan your program as a way to reach those outcomes that you've determined.
Great.
So
yeah, I just wanted to chime in really quick. The PowerPoint presentation is no longer displaying. I don't know.
Oh goodness. All right, let me see if I can. Thanks, Anthony.
No problem.
See if I can reshare. Is that working, Anthony?
Perfect.
All right, great. Thank you so much for letting me know. So, now let's kind of get to the sort of parts of a grant proposal itself. So, the very first is the cover letter or executive summary. So this is, as we said really briefly earlier, it's your chance to basically summarize your whole project in just a few sentences. So you just want to give the funder like a quick introduction to who you are, a sense of what it is you want to achieve, and kind of catch their attention right up front at the beginning of the proposal before they get into any of the details. What I like to do is to write my summary at the beginning to kind of give myself a little guide as I write the rest of the proposal. And then I'll kind of go back and revise it a little bit as the project evolves. But different people, may prefer to just write their cover letter, executive summary at the end once they've finished coming up with all the details. So then there's usually some sort of section that's like an organizational background section. And it's basically saying, who are you and why are you the right organization to take on a particular project? And so I always think of this section as kind of a resume for your organization. It's basically an opportunity to explain why your organization was created, what your mission is, what you've achieved so far since your founding. And it's really can be a chance to show off a little bit if there are things that you're particularly proud of, things that make you the right organization to take on a particular project. This is your chance to show that off to the funder a little bit and impress them. Then, again, not every funder will have these same exact sections, but there's usually some version of a community need section, which is basically saying to you, what is the problem that you and your organization are going to solve? So what you want to do is use a combination of numbers, data, and anecdotal evidence, so stories, to show that the problem you're talking about is a real problem in your community and that it makes sense to address it. You also want to show that you have already taken a look at the other organizations working in your community, and that the need is not being fully met by these other organizations. And you want to show who it is that you're going to help. So, are the people that you're going to help, how old are they? Are they children? Are they senior citizens? What is their background, their ethnicity, perhaps their economic status? Are they, what is it that that sort of characterizes the people that you're going to reach with this project? And then once you've kind of explained who you are and the problem that you're going to take on, that's when you actually get the chance to describe your project. And so this is where you actually get down to what it is you're going to do. So you want to explain to the funder exactly how it is you're going to carry out this project. What are the activities you're going to do? What are the timelines that you're going to follow? So if this is a year-long project, what's going to happen over the first 3 months? What will happen over, the next 6 months? You want to basically to sort of walk them through the process step by step. And again, you want to link your project description directly to what you are going to explain in the budget, so that funder sees that you've actually thought through your project really, really carefully. And then usually funders want to know something about the goals that you're looking to achieve. What are the goals you're looking for? What are the outcomes that you're going to come up with? So you might have a combination of long-term goals that you're looking to achieve, maybe not with this immediate project, but over many years. And then what are your immediate outcomes? So if you were, let's say you were an organization that was addressing hunger in a neighborhood, in 1 year, you're not going to solve the issue of people going hungry. So in 1 year, you might feed 100 families. In the long term, your goal is to eliminate hunger in the neighborhood. But with this project, the outcome is going to be, feeding 100 families. As much as possible, you want to use measurable outcomes that have numbers attached to them. So, like I said, we're going to feed 100 families. We're going to reduce hunger in our neighborhood by 10%. Those measurable numbers are important these days to funders who tend to look at their grants as investments. And so they want to know what the return on their investment is going to be. And so you want to show them that you're going to make a real measurable difference in people's lives. But you also need to make sure that your outcomes are realistic. So you don't want to overpromise. You don't want to suggest that you're going to cut hunger in half in 12 months if that's just not a realistic possibility. You want to stick to outcomes that are really plausible for you and your organization to achieve. And then there's often some sort of evaluation section in a proposal, which is where you tell the funder how you'll actually know if you've made a difference. So, how are you going to measure your progress towards the outcomes that you describe in the proposal? Maybe you'll have to do a survey. So like if you're offering childcare, certainly you would know how many children you provided childcare for, but maybe you would need to do a survey of families to see what difference the childcare made in their lives. So, there are all different ways of measuring your success or your progress, and you need to figure out the one that's appropriate for what it is that you're trying to do. And the measuring and evaluation can be a combination of quantitative and qualitative measurements. So it can involve numbers, like how many people did we feed, but it can also involve like qualitative descriptions. Like I said, a survey where you ask people about the difference that your project made in their lives is important too, even though it might not have hard numbers associated with it. So then once you've kind of described your whole project, you need to create a budget. And that tells the funder just how much this project is going to cost. And you have to show every single expense that's associated with the project. So that's everything from paying for someone's salary to carry out the project, any supplies or equipment that you're going to need. So if you were going to start just to use the examples I've been using so far, if you were going to do a childcare project, you might need classroom supplies, snacks, learning materials, books. If you were going to do a project that addressed hunger, you might need to buy food, or a refrigerator or shelving to store canned goods. So you need to include all of that. And then you also need to think about some overhead costs. So how much, if you were going to have a little food pantry in your church, what would it cost you to just to keep the lights on and just to have somebody there sorting through the food every day, and or handing it out. So you have to think through all of those costs. You have to show
Elliot,
any. Yes, sir.
really quick, the slides went out again.
Really? Okay. I don't know why that's happening. But, sorry, everyone.
No problem. I think it might be accidental on, yeah, maybe it was just like the request control button. There we go.
All
Perfect.
right. Sorry, folks.
No good.
So you have to show any income that's going to come in from the project. So there's actually like a few different kinds of income that could come in. So one is grants and contributions. So you might be going to several different funders to support your project, and so you need to show the funder all the different grants that you're asking for, and that you're waiting to hear about. There could be in-kind contributions. So sometimes instead of giving money, somebody will give you some kind of service, or like an item for free. So if you were addressing hunger, maybe the local supermarket would provide some food for free. And you need to show, if possible, the approximate value of that free contribution. And then there's also earned revenue. So like depending on the kind of project that you're doing, you might actually make some money from it. If you were running a childcare service, people might actually pay fees to send their children to the childcare. And so that would be another form of revenue that would come in. And you want to make sure, each funder, just the way each funder has a different structure for their grant proposals. Every funder has a different way that they like to see their budgets laid out, and so you want to listen to any suggestions or rules that they have for your designing your budget. And then most funders want to see some other attachments. The really common ones that I'm used to providing are a letter from the IRS that shows that your organization is a nonprofit organization, a list of board members if you have a board of directors. Some funders may want to see descriptions of jobs at your organization or resumes for people who are on your staff, so they can make sure that that folks are qualified to do the work that you're planning for them to do. You might need to send some letters of support. So, for example, if a local elected official knows your organization well, they might be willing to write a letter of support to the funder, telling them that you're a wonderful organization, that you're really committed to helping your neighborhood, and that you'll do a great job with this project. So those letters can sometimes help to bolster your grant proposal. Often you have to send in a budget for your organization as a whole. So for your grant proposal, you've had to do a budget just for this special project, but often the funders want to see your overall budget for all the work that you do. Sometimes they'll ask for your Form 990, which is your tax return if you're a nonprofit organization. And sometimes they want to see financial records for your organization to see like how you've done financially over the last few years. They might want to see if you're like a stable organization. So, and some funders will ask for other attachments. So you just have to be really careful to follow all their instructions exactly. So if you go through this whole process, go through all these steps, and you're lucky enough to get a grant, what should you do? So the first thing is really to thank the funder as soon as possible. Ideally, if you can, if you have the ability to call them on the phone, that's always great and personal, and you can just tell them how excited you are to start the project and how grateful you are. These days, it can be hard sometimes to get funders on the phone, so an email is another great option. Usually, if you actually get a grant, there'll be some sort of official grant agreement or a contract between you and the funder. So it'll say, it'll lay out all the terms of the grant. So like, we're going to give you $1,000 and you have to use this $1,000 to do exactly the project you described in your grant proposal. You have 1 year to use the money. You need to send us reports. So it's really important to review those contracts carefully, make sure you understand them, and then sign them and return them to the funder. That's usually a requirement to get your money. And then it's important to, share the good news around your organization. Make sure all the leaders of your organization are aware. And then you really need to get down to business and hold a meeting to start preparing to launch the program. So you've had this great idea. Now you've got at least some of the money that you need to make it a reality. And so you need to start that planning process. And then what's really, really important is over the course of your project, you have to make sure to submit any reports that the funder has asked for. If you want to get money again from that funder, it's really important to send in those reports that they've asked for. And I think it's important to understand that that funders don't expect that every project is going to work out perfectly. We take on projects all the time at Esperanza. We put in a grant proposal, and then we maybe get the money for it or some of the money. And the projects, they usually work out, but not always exactly the way that we thought they would in the first place. And funders realize that things are unpredictable, that projects don't always go exactly according to plan. So it's important to be really honest and just tell funders about the good and the bad things that have happened over the course of the project. They're not going to punish you for something not working out exactly the way that you had expected it would. So what happens if you don't get a grant? Well, first of all, it's important to realize that happens a lot. It's kind of like being a hitter in baseball. I mean, if you're successful, even half the time or a little better than half the time, you're doing really, really well. So, but you have to realize that there's going to be a lot of times where you apply for a grant and you just don't get it. And it happens to every single organization. It's just the reality. There's not enough money to go around. So what I like to do is if we don't get a grant, I like to reach out to the funder and see if they'd be willing to give us some feedback on our proposal that might help us make our proposal stronger the next time. Now, not every funder wants to take that time.
Really quick.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm really quick. Marisol, I think that you selected to share, and I think that's what took down the slide. Oh yeah, the slide went down again.
Okay.
I think I had someone take control of the presentation.
I am so, so sorry.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
No worries. All right. Trying to share again.
There you go. Thank you.
All
Guys.
right. Sorry,
Did I
everybody.
do that every time? Was that me every time?
It could have been. It could have been. I
I've
just saw. I just saw
never
the
used
mouse up.
Teams. Sorry. Okay.
No, I know.
That's-
Most
that makes
people
sense.
haven't used Teams that much. We've been using it a lot for at Esperanza for the last year. So, but
I
but I
did
think
Zoom, but I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm muting me now.
no worries. Well, so anyway, I like to reach out for feedback. Some funders just don't have time to offer that, but if they do, it's a really great service. I mean, it really can help you do better the next time. And I also just think having those conversations can help to like create a stronger relationship with the funder. So if you go back to them, maybe in the future, they'll have kind of a more of a personal relationship with you, which is nice. You never ever want to argue with funders. It just won't work. So like they say that we're not funding you for this, this whatever reason. You totally disagree with their reasoning. You're just never going to convince them to give you money. So it's really important to just to stand up for your project, but to be courteous and professional, and just understand that that there's no way of sort of winning that fight. So you just have to hear what the feedback is. You often, if you have a chance to talk to the funder, you can ask them if it would make sense for you to come back to them again. So is the problem that your project just doesn't really fit with their priorities? Or was it maybe just, they got a lot of requests for money at this time and they weren't able to fund your project? And would it make sense for you to ask again in another year or so? So they can help give you a little bit of guidance about that. And then basically just take the feedback that they give you and try to incorporate it into your proposal and make it better for the next time. One thing right now that I sort of haven't mentioned is the whole coronavirus situation. I realize a lot of funders have been adding some sort of question or questions about the coronavirus to their proposal formats, because it's just been such an overwhelming reality for everyone over the last year or more. And so I realize that's something that you may want to just think about a little bit when you're sort of thinking about the world of grants and proposals, is like, how has the coronavirus affected your organization? So if you're a church, maybe it's been hard to have in-person services because of the coronavirus, or maybe the coronavirus has led to a lot of problems in your community. Folks have lost their jobs, or a lot of folks have been sick from the coronavirus, and so that's increased challenges in your neighborhood. And then I realized that's something that is a little bit unique right now, that you'll often see on grant proposals, and I sort of hadn't mentioned that. And the other thing that I didn't mention in these slides that that's important is just building relationships with funders. In the like 20 years ago or so, it was really easy to reach out and talk to funders about a project that you were thinking about, to ask them questions. These days, they do so much more of their work on the internet, and it's hard to connect with them personally. But if you ever are able to reach a funder on the phone or somehow in person, that's a really great way to build like a personal connection with them. And I think that when you can build that personal connection, it's actually increases the likelihood that you'll receive a grant, because funders are people and they want to give money to other people. And so if they have like a personal relationship with you, they're more likely to, I think, to think positively of you when they're deciding how to give away money. And so whenever you have the opportunity to sort of build those personal relationships, that's a great thing. So I strongly encourage that. What I wanted to do is for those folks who are looking at the Esperanza Hispanic ministry grants, I just wanted to show folks how that application kind of relates to what I've been talking about today. So hopefully I am sharing now that some of the questions from that grant application. And so I wanted to show you that the questions aren't exactly the same, but they certainly relate to the sort of proposal topics and sections that we've been talking about. So let's just look quickly at a few of them. So one is the client population served by the grant request. Well, that's really similar to one of the sort of sections we were talking about earlier, where you're asked to describe your community, to describe the people that you're going to serve with your proposal. So that's like a clear fit. There's 2 questions down. You're asked to provide a brief summary of your organization's history and mission. So again, that's almost an exact match for one of the sections we were talking about. They ask that you provide a brief summary of the grant request, including the challenges you hope to address. So that kind of overlaps with 2 of the sections that we were talking about. One, describing the actual project that you're going to carry out, and then secondly, what are the problems that you're going to respond to with your project. And then they say, what positive change do you expect to result from your program or project? So that's really gets to the goals and outcomes question that we were talking about. What is it that you're going to achieve? What difference are you going to make? So it really is a pretty close fit with what we've been talking about. And one interesting thing that's asked in the in this grant application is to give 3 references for your organization, which is interesting. It's not something you see on every proposal, but I think it's a really great question. So if you can find folks who can really speak to your organization and why it's the right organization to carry out a particular initiative, that really like strengthens your request. And then they ask you to explain how you're going to evaluate your project. So that's, again, like an exact match to one of the sections that I was talking about earlier. So you can see, these sections are never going to be an exact match between every proposal, but they're like typical questions that you're going to see across different funders. And so if you kind of answer for yourselves these basic questions of why should your organization do this project? What is it you're going to achieve? What problem are you going to address? If you answer these kind of core questions for yourselves, you're going to put yourselves in a really strong position to respond to lots of different grant proposals. So that kind of is the core of my presentation. And so I guess I wanted to open it up for folks, if you have questions, comments, things you want to add. I wanted to open it up for folks to chat a little bit.
Awesome, great. So I don't see any questions in the chat, but feel free to unmute yourself at this time, or maybe if you prefer to write in the chat, we can read your question and be able to have this this time for Q&A. So again, if you have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. And if unable to do that, feel free to utilize the chat feature.
Hi, good afternoon. I was a little bit late. I apologize for the tardiness. I had another meeting that I left a little bit late. And I wanted to know if any of this information would be provided via email.
Yeah, so so there's a few things that we can provide. So first of all, there's like the slides from this presentation, which we'll definitely can send. And then I have three like attachments that I've created, which I think I would probably send to you, Anthony, to maybe send to people in this group. So so one is a list of like sort of grant resources, like places where you could go to learn about different grant opportunities that are out there. Some places in our area that offer really free or cheap classes in grant writing, like really hands-on classes, so that can be really helpful, and some other resources like that. I have kind of a sample, not like a full grant proposal, but sort of like a mini grant proposal that I've created, just like a pretend one, that just gives like an idea of how to go through step by step and think about the different questions. And I also created like some grant, like a list of grant terms, like almost like just words that don't always make sense outside of the grant world, so people can know what funders are talking about. So yeah, I was going to give all that stuff to Anthony, and then I think he'll have obviously everyone's email.
Yep. And then in addition to that as well, with the post-training email, we're going to make this recording available to you so you can watch the recap. So for those that like yourself came in late, or you just want a refresher, you want to go back and think about what Eliav has shared, and maybe you're working on a grant and you're reviewing the material at the same time, this would also be available for future review as well.
Can we put the emails, our email addresses right in the chat? Because there's a different email I'd like you to send our information to. Would that be okay to do?
Yeah, that'll be totally fine. We would utilize the email that's in the registration, but if there's another email that you would suggest, you can definitely share that. I would say place the full name and email address, and then we can forward that information there as well.
Thank you.
No problem. Hector, no problem. We're happy
I have
that
a question.
the information was helpful. Yes, feel free. Yes.
Buenos dias, everyone. When a grant is when we're in the process of creating a grant, do you assist in any way?
We can, we have in the past. So yeah, I mean, right now our department is stretched pretty thin, so we don't have like a huge amount of time. Like we definitely wouldn't have time to write a proposal on someone's behalf, but we probably would have time to take a look at someone's grant proposal and maybe offer some really quick feedback to it, and some suggestions. Again, it might be hard for us, depending on like exactly what we're working on at the moment, to spend like days and days on it, but we absolutely are happy to help out and just offer some suggestions.
Yes. Yeah, I was actually asking about general questions, definitely not to fulfill it for us, because it would defeat the purpose of having this training too.
Right.
Because we definitely have to learn ourselves. Gracias.
Sure. Yeah, and it really is a great skill. Like you can kind of take it anywhere. And like I've for example, I just I'm on like a nonprofit board, like in my spare time, and I've been able to help out a couple times, just like raising some money for like a small organization in our community. And so it's a nice skill because you can bring it to different things, whether it's your job or something that you just work on in your personal time. Anything else for folks?
It looks like there might be a question coming in the chat,
Okay.
or maybe not.
Oh, and I just wanted to say if yeah, and just touching on that same answer to the last question. I mean, if folks do have other questions you think of, after today, certainly feel free to send those by email, and happy to see if I can offer anything useful.
Thank you so much. The information was awesome.
Oh, great.
Thank you. No, appreciate the feedback.
Oh, I just wanted to say something I hadn't said before, by the way, which is just kind of a random detail, but a lot of funders work on just sort of their own schedules like for the year. So it's just something important to be aware of. So, some funders you could just go to like at any time during the year that you happen to like, you thought of an idea and you want to go to them. That's great. But other funders have like very specific times of the year when they accept grant proposals. So like only in the spring or whatever, and you have to get it in by a certain date. And they'll let you know their answer by a certain date. So that's just one other detail to just be aware of. And when you're learning about grants, you want to make sure you know what the deadlines are, if there are deadlines, so you don't miss out on those opportunities.
Indeed. All right, well, that pretty much sums up our time together. Eliav, we want to thank you so much for your time and being able to share your wealth of knowledge with us in this area. Again, this is very new to some of us, and we think that this is a good resource just to serve as a primer, right? A very on the ground basic principles on grant writing. And we look to offer this annually. So again, we thank you guys for registering. We do have your information that you shared with us, and we'll be sharing those additional resources to you all via email. And then in addition to that, you'll have my contact, and we'll be in touch with you with other opportunities that are similar to this that would happen later on in this year. And we would help to be a resource to you, the organization you represent, and hopefully your mission and vision to help Philadelphia in some way and capacity. So again, thank you for your time. Elia, thank you. And everyone have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Gracias very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Anthony, I'm sorry. I'm unable to